This is the discussion, more or less, for on KVM. So what we're going to talk about today, we'll give a little introduction to the team and our project, a little bit more detail on the project scope by Serge. Then we'll give the status of the key components of KVM QEMU, and then we'll open it up for discussion. I think the presentation content is not very much. I think maybe 15 to 20 minutes, and then we'll open it up for discussion. So the team, project manager is Serge here, and I'm Jeff, the tech lead, and next is Peter, more or less QEMU maintainer, then John, and Andre, and Anup couldn't be here with us this week, and then Pranav. We also have some community friends. Mark is a KVM upstream maintainer, and Christopher could not be with us this week either. So, okay, so I'm going to turn over the presentation to Serge, who's going to tell you about our project.
Thanks, I'm sorry. Thanks, Jeff. So this is a new project. The funny thing about this project is that we are not just working on the virtualization. The whole team is virtual. It's comprised of the sort of double assignees from other teams. So we got assignees from our members, and then those got assigned to our team. Which is good. I mean, like double virtual team. Our primary sort of client in terms of this being a source of requirements and expectations is at the moment LNG, but we are expecting LNG to join that club. So we are expecting lots of new information coming from new joiners. Our main, let's say, main idea of how do we work is we work with upstream only. We don't hide anything. We are completely open and public. Our team is distributed all over the world, so we are almost like all around the clock, which is good, and which is also challenging for me because I have to organize like a coordination meeting with the team. I need to do that in two pieces, basically. You can visit our team wiki. You will be able to find all the stuff there, including links to Jira, where we store all the work items. You will be able to see what's happening there, and you can leave your comments or concerns there as well. We are also present on RC, on Linaro channel. We don't use yet, or maybe just don't use our dedicated channel. Then regarding the scope, so basically we've tried to build a map of all the bricks which are used to build the virtualization solution for 32 bits. You can see those here. This is basically the missing or not fully complete pieces of the solution. And those which are on the left, those are KVM related. Those are those which are on the right QEMU related, and in the middle are those items which are related to both areas. So, and for 64 bits we have slightly more bricks because of the state of the area, and we will get updates on the state from guys sitting here, Peter and Mark. So basically these two pictures are probably to be used during the questions part of our session. So feel free to ask us to rewind back to these slides. So now I'm passing the mic to Mark. So please greet him.
Morning. I'm Marc Zangier, I'm with ARM. I've been working on KVM on ARM for the past 18 months or so. So good news, KVM on ARM 32-bit has made it into mainline for 3.9. So yeah, please test it, have fun, enjoy. So it mandates the virtualization extensions that NLPA, so that's basically an A15 or an A7. At the moment, we mainly support the A15. We don't expect any massive problem with the A7, just nobody got around to do it. We support SMP both for guest and host. We support the virtual gig and the generic timers. It's been tested on, well, the available platforms with A15, so the Style Express TC2, Exynos 5, and OMAP 5, if you can find one. For platform emulation, we are using QEMU. Talk to Peter about what's going on, some good news on that front. Or KVM tool for the platform emulation. This code is maintained by Christopher Dahl, who couldn't be here today, unfortunately. Not much to say about it. It's fairly complete. It's not on a same level of features as the x86 port. We miss a couple of things, but it's not bad. It actually works fairly well. Performance seems to be fairly decent for depending on your workload, and on your platform emulation as well, if you want any. Yeah, so far so good. Now, slightly more experimental, KVM R64. So the patches have been posted yesterday. Sorry, I apologize to everyone who received a massive patch bomb on 3 different mailing lists. If you have time, if you want to have a look, please review these patches. It's very important. I mean, it's fairly new, it's probably fragile, broken. Please review them. Same as the 32-bit version, we mandate the virtualization extensions. We also mandate this time virtual gig and generic timers. We can work with that on 32-bit. For 64-bit, we just mandate them. They are part of the architecture. We run on foundation model and also Cortex A57, SMP, both host and guest. So the 32-bit code only supports 4K pages. On ARM64, we support both 4K and 64K, following the configuration of the host. We support both 32-bit and 64-bit guest as well, which is quite fun. Slight departure from this 32-bit version. At the moment, we don't have QEMU, so we can only use KVM tool as a platform emulation. I'm the maintainer. Patches welcome, please. So we have plans, plenty of things to do. Live migration is one sore point in the picture. We don't have it, so we have plans to do it. Peter has a detailed investigation of what needs to be done. Huge space support for stage 2 translation. We have patches in progress from Christopher. System MMU, IO MMUs. There's an ongoing work by Will Deacon, at least on the kernel side for the host. And once that is done, we'll be able to investigate plugging that into KVM. New interrupt controllers, Cortex A7, I mentioned that earlier. Big Little, that's an interesting problem. How do you want you want your VM to migrate across CPUs? Do you want to have CPUs dedicated, well, your virtual CPUs dedicated to the physical cores? I have no answer to that yet. So there's plenty of interesting issues to tackle. Feature parity with x86. There's a number of things. We don't have event FD. We don't have VOs yet. All that is to be investigated. It's probably just a matter of plugging the right subsystem. I don't expect any major issue, just have to be done. An interesting toy as well is big Indian guests on little Indian hosts. Had a go at that a couple of weeks ago. Have a semi-working prototype. It's not bad. It's actually quite fun to see running. I don't know if it solves any real problem, but why not?
I'm sorry about that.
Could be, yeah. I imagine that could be useful. But yeah, there's a patch set in my Git tree for those who want to have a look. Touches everything from the kernel to Vert.io to KVM tool. Bloody nightmare. KVM tool itself. So we've decided to go the KVM tool way when we started looking at having KVM on ARM64. Why KVM tool? Because it's very focused on KVM itself. It doesn't have any instruction emulation. It follows the kernel coding convention and paradigm. It doesn't feel like you're coding user space. User space is a terrible place to be. On ARM, we only have para-virtualized backend, so Vert.io, MMIO. We have a new platform on the 32-bit side, MagVert, who's been really made for that. It's probably the simplest platform ever. It's completely empty. You have to love it. Sadly, it's unlikely to be ever merged. So for those who don't know about KVM tool, it lives in the tool directory in the kernel, just like perf. Except that if you followed LKML recently, you've noticed given the temperature of the flame war, it's never going to get it. Yeah, and it's maintained by Will, so if you have your favorite feature to be supported, please email him. If you're interested in the code, Christopher's Git tree, mine, Pekka's Git tree for KVM tool, the various mailing lists. Please, by any means, join the fun. And that's it, and off to Peter. And we'll take questions after I've done.
Okay, right, hello there. So I'm Peter Maydell, I work for ARM, I've been seconded into Linaro, I've been dealing with QEMU for a couple of years now. So QEMU, platform emulation for KVM. This slide is kind of the antithesis of the KVM tool slide, so QEMU works as a complete CPU emulator without KVM if you want it to. It's the big, solid, lots of features, tested in production thing. It's not the KVM tool, like convenient for kernel hacking and not a lot else thing. Unfortunately, it's large code base. It's a bit of a pain to work with. Every time you want to do anything, you first have to submit a 20-patch series that refactors the area of the code before you can do anything. I maintain all the ARM target-related stuff. We got a mailing list and a website. And we're basically working completely upstream at the moment. So I wrote this slide last night. And I said, initial patches in the process of being upstreamed. I woke up this morning, I had an email that said that that's all been merged in. So, yep, upstream, completely in mainline, and you can say configure, build it for ARM with KVM. At the moment, the guest, its view of the world is kind of like a Versatile Express with an A15, which is just convenient because we had all the devices. The other thing we've done so far is we've been working on cleaning up the Vert.io code in QEMU so that we can basically so that we can add the Vert.io MMIO support so that you can put in a Vert.io device without having to have a whole PCI controller in your board, which is useful because ARM boards don't have PCI as a general rule, so we don't have any support for that. A lot of that has been done by a company called GreenSocks, who've been helping us. So what have we still got to do on the V7 QEMU? Migration, so Mark mentioned that. There's work on the kernel side, there's also work in QEMU. We want to move to MacVert, so there's no point providing a whole bunch of legacy stuff when you just provide a very clean, stripped-down system. Big little hosts, there's a lot of testing and validation work. It would be good to get that into the continuous integration system. And we have a long, long list of maybe this will be interesting stuff. Power management. Do you want to be able to debug and profile your VM? IOMMU support. Does anybody want to security audit the code for us? Real-time KVM, does that make sense? Who knows? Big Indian. So there's a long list of stuff, and we're probably not going to do any of that unless people stand up and say, I have a real use case for this, I want this. So if you need any of this stuff, then say so. V8, what's next? Everything for QMB V8, because we haven't started. So we want to do system models, we'd like to do some instruction emulation, KVM support work. Everything that was on the list for V7 that we have done or we need to do that. And that's it. Thank you.
So I think we'll open it up to questions, discussions.
Yeah, one thing I wanted to mention, we have 2 mics here in the room. So if you have a question, please raise your hand, we will pass it over. Because we have guys connecting from like remotely, we would like them to be able to hear what you're asking. Yeah, and to help you with the answers, there are some questions for you.
I think I saw somewhere the bootloader hypervisor support. Could you please say a few things because I didn't see it in the slides? So bootloader hypervisor support. So it in nothing in the graph that Sergey was showing in the beginning.
You want me to take that one? I'll take that one.
Yeah, I think.
Okay. The question of what the bootloader needs to do, specifically with UEFI, is something that we're going to try to finally to hammer out. And there's a couple of things that are going on here. There's UEFI support for the bootloader. Right now, the kernel expects it must be entered in hypervisor mode for everything to work. All the code that's needed to do that is there for U-boot. It's there for, is it there for U-boot?
There's at least an implementation for Armlink.
Okay, there's an, is it upstreamed? It will be upstreamed soon, okay.
There's work to upstream it and make sure it's clean, so it's nice and easy for big view platform to do this, and I'll just do that.
Okay.
It's there if you enter U-boot.
Yeah, okay, so on UEFI, there's patches. I know they exist because I just got them in my inbox. There's patches that exist to enter the kernel in height mode, and those patches are, Arn's been working on the intent to get them upstream, but they are, the problem with them right now is we need to play well with the rest of the community. And part of the problem is that there's existing UEFI systems that are out there that we cannot break. That means that the default boot mechanism for UEFI, we can't just blanket say we're going to enter in height mode because there's operating systems out there that will break. The agreement in the ARM binding sub-team on principle has been we will still enter in supervisor mode and have some kind of hype call that gets us into height mode. That actual mechanism had no one's actually spec'd it out and written out exactly what it is. We've got code that will do it, but we don't have it written down, and so there needs to be some standardization work done to ratify exactly how that's going to be. From what I've been looking at here, I think it's probably going to be in the Linux-specific loader. We jumped into height mode before we went to the kernel, and we'll be able to do that. But we're going to figure it out this afternoon.
Yeah, there's a meeting at 3 o'clock UEFI
Yeah.
and hypervisors support, not KVM specific, really.
In this room, that is. Any other questions or actually some feedback? Okay, we have a guy there.
Serge, maybe we can just get this offline. But what I'm curious to get, and I haven't seen in the slides, is do you have a roadmap slide that kind of shows when the features that Mark talked about, for example, that the project is working on, when they will come out, when we'll have those? Is that available somewhere?
Okay, we are working on two things. One thing is a roadmap for TSC, which will be presented tomorrow, which is an early draft, basically. And the reason for that is that we are working with everyone here to come up with a good plan, at least for the period until the next Connect, what exactly team will be working on, and what is the sequence of features we are going to implement, like the next few months. So somewhere right after the Connect, that visibility will be basically there. And the primary source of that information is Jira. So we are working with Jira as a primary tool for handling all the work items. So anytime anyone can go there and see what's happening.
Go on, Bill.
So maybe it's here, but I'm not understanding the terminology. But what is the status of direct device level sharing to a guest, taking a given PCI card or device and giving the guest complete control of it?
Please take the mic.
So the first problem is PCI itself. It's not exactly a common feature on now. That's one thing. Second thing is we want, for that we probably want IOMMU support. So the support for IOMMUs is in progress. Will, I don't know if Will is around. No. So that's work in progress. I expect something in the coming month. But
What about just like a platform device that you want to share?
so that's already doable. For example, that's how the VGIG is mapped into a guest. It's directly accessible. It's really a real device. You start having troubles with interrupts then, because we inject virtual interrupts, not physical interrupts. So you'll need some kind of proxy in your host kernel to pass the interrupt to the guest. But it's not something, at the moment, we lack a bit of the infrastructure to have the complete solution. It's doable. It's not completely there yet. So that's in progress.
I think the other thing I would say is that device pass-through is one of those things where we'd be kind of looking for I have a definite use case, I have some definite hardware, this is what I want to be doing kind of thing. Because at the moment it's on the sort of the feature list of this might be useful, is it really definitely useful to somebody? And if you can specify a complete solid use case, then that's much more likely to get done.
Support for OpenStack, or the different modules in OpenStack. Okay.
Could you speak up and directly in the mic?
Do you, have any timeline or anything on sort of OpenStack support in the libvirt for ARM?
I think it's for you guys, basically.
For me? As we had mentioned, one of the goals of this discussion is to find out what the use cases are. So maybe we could talk after the session about what your specific use case is, and then. But right now, no. The answer is no. We don't have any direct plan for support of any specific software.
That isn't a simple. Leg is going to want OpenStack as a
Okay.
Thank you.
You say you're going to have a discussion of use cases at some point this week, yeah? Or apparently, no?
Yeah, we could discuss it now if you like. Okay.
No, not necessarily. I'm just thinking with a networking hat on, virtualization is more used to sort of provision and partition than it's not very dynamic. It's kind of get the bits of the system in place and don't get in the way is one thing. So I think there are some networking usages of this.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. So I think there's some thinking and use cases from the networking side would be jolly good. My other comment is around the big engine. That obviously, there's a bunch of networking code that is big engine, and so that's right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and interesting theoretical possibilities are not what we should be doing. We should be drive-by. Well, the previous meeting actually got down to what is the use case for using that piece of code. So it's use cases. So let's join in the networking guys in the use case discussion. There's plenty of them, and they know far more than I do about networking. Okay, good.
Yeah, and please don't hesitate to approach us either here or virtually. We need your input.
Do you want to answer
So,
more about their use case?
one question I had was about libvirt. What's the current status on V7? Is there anything missing? I guess that's also related to the OpenStack discussion that was earlier. And
Yeah,
then maybe on V8, if you have an update.
Yeah, this item, libvirt, is basically to test it, to see how it works, if it works properly or not, and to find out if it needs to be anything needs to be fixed. Okay.
Yeah, so the current status with libvirt is, well, so far we've been doing basic bring up of KVM, so it's just run QEMU manually. So it's on the roadmap as we know people are kind of interested in this and it kind of needs to be done. But we haven't started anything with it yet.
So you asked for what are use cases. I'll second that OpenStack is the use case for leg. There's others, but start with that one.
Okay, I'm not so familiar with OpenStack, so from what I understand, it's quite a big thing, and a lot of it, the workload depends on what you're running on top of that. Is that correct?
Well, it's mainly that I believe that OpenStack uses libvirt, and that all works today with Linux containers backend on ARM. So it should just work with KVM, I would guess, for ARM.
Okay.
But if there's features in KVM for ARM that x86 has that libvirt needs and OpenStack needs, then there's one easy way to find that out, which is running OpenStack.
Right, but I think I'm not that familiar with OpenStack, but I think you need an application on top of that to be doing stuff. You just start it up. Okay.
Is it working?
I think within leg we can collect the right setting and the test application that we may use on top of OpenStack for KVM. So it will be part of the feedback at use case level.
Right. So now we're talking about testing, which is important. We're trying to set up continuous integration system. Then we'd like to know what kind of workloads to be running for the testing in that. We very much welcome that kind of feedback.
Okay.
So related to the feedback for the workloads, there was also a session in the last Connect for testing KVM. Have you looked into that?
Yeah. No, I know that that exists, but we haven't really looked at it because we're focusing on more fundamental things like getting KVM and QMU just implemented, right? So.
But yes, we are going to reuse all the information we have from previous session.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's definitely in our plans, but that's not what we're focusing on now. Right, so.
Yeah, so we have a question there.
Okay.
Yeah. I have a question about the secure mode. So do you plan to support a secure boot or a secure mode with trust job for KVM and QEMU?
Maybe Grant, can you
I'll take that.
Okay. Thank you.
Again, with them looking at the fundamentals, that's part of the larger architecture and boot, and there's a lot of things that go into that. And with this stuff, we're well before, this is the fundamentals that have to happen first before we can get into what the secure world implications are going to be. So, yes, haven't figured it out yet.
There's been a lot of toing and froing around security and what do we do, and the company's been formed and stuff like that. So I've been asked to go and figure out what Linaro should be doing about security stuff. So I'm having conversations with various people. I'd welcome some input because right now I don't know. I've got a few ideas, but.
Just on the boot, so I think the focus right now is directly booting a kernel and running it as the guest. I mean, before we get to security, or UEFI running in the guest, we need at least directly boot a kernel or directly boot a blob because we're going to want to run an RTOS or something like that in virtualization. We just need to make sure that we're not tied directly to the kernel loader. Is that there today?
Just, can you clarify that? You say you directly boot the kernel?
Directly boot the kernel is one use case, or, imagine we were going to run UEFI in the guest. We would directly start in the firmware blob, right? We need that mode as well, even if we don't have UEFI, right? I can provide a bare metal ARM binary and you guys just start it, right? So, should already there?
Well, not tested.
Okay.
So it doesn't work. But hopefully it will work. Again, we do most of our testing, all of our testing with the experiments. But yeah, if you have other workloads you want us to try, or that you can actually try yourself, even better. With KVM, yeah, feel free. Yeah, bug reports welcome.
Yeah, I would imagine that for actually booting a UEFI blob, you probably need a custom one because the VM you see inside KVM doesn't have secure mode, and UEFI probably says, I'm going to assume I've got secure mode and does all sorts of stuff. But in principle, you should be able to just hand it a blob.
So we'll just take a few more.
A question for Mark. I think that one of the very interesting targets that the team has put in place is the CI loop for KVM, and to have it in continuous integration and testing in Lava. Do you have in mind any extreme nasty test cases that you think would help your work in making this mature?
I don't have really nasty stuff. I think what I run in a guest is pretty much what I would run on a normal host kernel. So I have this slightly hacked test suite that consists of running LTP, hackbench, cyclic test, all that in parallel, and wait for the thing to explode. That's basically what I do. It succeeds most of the time. I mean, exploding. But yeah, I don't think we should treat KVM any differently from the way we treat we treat a host, I mean, we should run the exact same test suite, and apart from a small performance degradation, which has to be measured and verify that there's no regression, we should test it the exact same way. There shouldn't be any major difference. So yeah, whatever tool you already use to test your host environment should be used for a guest.
I mean, there are some interesting issues for Lava just because a standard host kernel, Lava has the kernel, boots the thing on the board, runs the tests. KVM, you've got this extra level because you've got find a host kernel, stick it on the board, boot the host user space, get the right QEMU, put it in the host user space, find the thing you're going to use as your guest kernel, run the test inside the guest kernel and so on. So there's infrastructure stuff, but once the loop is there, you can add tests, and we've got a whole pile of things from the session in previous Connect, which I think might be interesting to test, that we can then just add in as extra tests, I hope.
There's at least foundation models. I don't think there's any real platforms with lots of high memory, above 4 gig. Have you done any testing in that area, or do you expect any gotchas there that are broken?
So at least for the 64-bit, we haven't. Well, I think the 32-bit. I think in terms of real platform, the most we have is 2 gig at the moment. So we've never tried with anything better than that. On the model, I think I tried with 4 gig twice. Not very often, admittedly. I don't expect any major issue. But as always, the lack of suitable testing may just hide bugs. So again, we have to do more testing. I think the fact that KVM is now in mainline, hopefully we'll see more tests and then more bug reports. We're fairly confident. I mean, we've given it a beating, but you never know. Questions?
Question, would the Lava and the continuous integration cover performance regressions or just stability issues?
Yeah, I hope so.
Well, that's definitely
and
one thing we
eventually,
better measure.
Pardon?
That's definitely something that should be measured and logged. One thing I'm really interested in is really tracking the performance of KVM over time. I mean, in other areas of the kernel, we've seen performance sometimes dropping and not being noticed for a few releases. And all of a sudden someone noticed, oh, my workload has lost 20% in performance. What happened? And it takes ages to find out what's been going on.
Is that the first thing that you did? The most helpful thing that could happen would be to test that for you. Your life would be better if you did that first, right?
Yeah, well...
you kind of think it's probably stable. You really want to hit performance, right?
Yes, exactly. So that's... If we can have that in an automated way, that would be awesome.
Right, but as Peter mentioned, there's a lot to bring up to get to that point.
I'm not saying we should have that overnight.
Right.
Well, if we can, good, but...
Okay, the other question I have, which may not be that appropriate, but the Linaro virtualization group, is there any plan for the other big player in the virtualization field like Zen?
So I think you want to talk about it? Okay. So our direction comes from the leg, and then so we've been given the task of bringing up KVM. So that's the status now.
You heard the talk yesterday from Mark Hambleton and from Lars about Citrix joining Linaro, the joining leg. And so obviously we'll pull Zen into some of the work will be pulling Zen into these sort of test rigs as well. So hopefully all will align and it will be lovely.
Okay. Yeah, okay.
According to the schedule, basically, we should be finishing right now, but please, if you have anything for us, please approach us with Jeff. We need your input. Thank you.
Sure, thank you.